Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I don't have a gavel home with me, but we'll just have to do without and pretend. And I'm going to ask Ms. Anaya to read the Open Public Meetings Act statement, please.
On Wednesday, November 25th, 2020, notice of this meeting was mailed to the press and the Current of Egg Harbor Township. Notice was also delivered that day to the Egg Harbor Township clerk and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall. Advertised instructions for this virtual meeting were posted on our website and on social media on Wednesday, November 25th, 2020.
Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Alabarda? I don't see him on here yet. Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Wait, here. Mr. Price is here.
Thank you. Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Salagi?
Here.
Mrs. Bird?
Here.
And Mr. Castellano?
Here. Okay, what we're going to do now at this point, when you see the flag appear on your screen, we'll say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone to our special meeting. This is both a candidate interview meeting as well as a budget workshop. I want to welcome with us tonight our applicants for the open board seat, and thank you for being here with us. I did receive a note from Ms. Butcher that she has withdrawn from the process with regret, but we do hope to see and hear from Ms. Butcher again. And I also want to welcome Miss Yolanda Melville, who is here from Cooper Levinson. She is quite often here with us when Mrs. Elko is otherwise occupied. And so then what I want to do is just very quickly go over why we're here before I turn it over to Chandra. First, we're going to fill a vacancy on the board, and there's Mr. Delabarca. Welcome. Mr. Ellis resigned from the board on November the 4th. By law, the board has 65 days to make a replacement on the board. Because of the pandemic and all of the extra work we have, it's important that we do fill that vacancy and do so in a timely manner, and most certainly in the time prescribed by law. Now, under our bylaws, the selection is a merit-based selection. We advertise, we ask for letters and resumes. The board members have all received a copy of the letters and resumes submitted and have reviewed them. And then we conduct interviews for the most qualified candidate. The candidate who will be appointed this evening cannot be sworn in, however, this evening, because in the school system, and Board of Education falls under the same rules as the school system, so the background check needs to be completed before anyone can be sworn in. So it differs from some of the other governing bodies you may see. In addition, that person will serve only until the next election. That's how the law works. We had originally scheduled the special meeting for November the 24th, last Tuesday. But we had several things happen. We had a surge in cases of COVID coupled with the state moving Atlantic County into the orange threat zone, whereby we had to make a decision for the district to go all virtual. In addition, we have our entire central office team on quarantine. So it was simply impossible to have a live meeting last week, and it still is. But going forward, we're going to discuss what we need to do. I think we have board members who've expressed an interest in keeping our meetings aligned with the district. So in other words, when the schools are open, we will be in person. When the schools are virtual, our meetings will be virtual. There's a lot of logic to that, and we'll finalize that later. But we certainly could not have a live meeting while our central office staff was in quarantine. That would have been unsafe for everyone. So now, I'm going to, before I turn it over to Chandra, I just want to let everyone know that the process we have is as fair and as transparent as we could possibly make it. Chandra is going to give the details in a moment. As I said, we've reviewed the letters and resumes from our applicants. Board members have not seen the questions. Board members will not be asking the questions. Chandra will ask the questions. Board members will not be asking any questions or any follow-ups. And that's so that every applicant will be asked the exact same questions. Following the interview process, we'll adjourn to executive session and we'll have a conversation, and then we'll come back out into this public session and hopefully be ready to make an appointment. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Anaya, to Chandra.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. So you did recap the process very clearly. Letters and resumes were sent to me via email or US mail. Last week, the board members received a copy for their review. Dr. Gruccio, myself, and our board attorney, Amy Halk-Elko, created some questions originally set for the live interviews, but we have modified since we are virtual now. The process, as you can see, the candidates are on the Google Meet with us. We are going to be doing a process where everybody stays on mute until they are called upon. We will rotate who gets the question first, but each candidate will get the same question. They will have 2 minutes to answer said question. And as I mentioned, we will rotate who goes first. At this time, I will call upon, I'm going to set my timer. 1 second. I wish we had something better, but we just have a 2-minute timer on my phone that will ding at 1:45 and then ding again at the 2-minute marker. Okay. So set for 1:45. We will start with, I'll introduce each of the candidates who applied. We have Ms. Terry Alabarda, Mr. Michael Merlino, and Mr. Nicholas Seppi. In order to make this process fair, just an alphabetical by last name, and we will rotate in that order. We will start with Ms. Alabarda going first, then Mr. Merlino, then Mr. Seppi, and then the next round, we will have Mr. Merlino go first, and then I will call upon you after that, okay? You guys ready? Okay, Ms. Alabarda, you can unmute yourself. What do you think the role of a board member of the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education is?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank all the board members for their service because I know that board members have a large job to do. The board member needs to represent the concerns of the citizens to the school administration and represent the needs of the students to the community. They also set the policies, goals, and objectives for the district and holds the superintendent responsible for implementing them. The board sets vision and goals. They also have to effectively communicate and collaborate as a team. That is so important because that will help the schools to be better. The board also has to be in charge of finance. They adopt and oversee the annual budget. The board also approves the school calendar for the year. We also have to adopt curriculum, approve textbooks, curriculum materials. And I know there's monthly curriculum meetings as well as finance and policy. And the board members need to oversee construction and improving contracts with outside vendors. The last thing that the board does is hire and evaluate the superintendent. So the board basically, the way I see it, is the vision. They say what needs to be done. And then our administrators and our wonderful teachers decide how it's going to get done. So they're like the mission. They're the way to get to the vision that the board sets for our students in Egg Harbor Township.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's your 145. Good job. Okay, at this time, I will call on Mr. Merlino. Again, there will be a ding at your 1 minute 45 marker, and you'll have 15 more seconds after that. The question is, what do you think the role of a board member of the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education is? You can unmute and go ahead.
Chandra, thank you very much, and also for your help during the week. Being hearing disabled, you really rely on other people. Thank you very much. I also would like to take this moment to congratulate Tamika for really a great run in her candidacy for the board, and also Nick Seppi for what he did in the previous election. Also, I'd like to really thank and congratulate Patrick Ireland on his outstanding run for his board seat. I think it goes without saying that as a board member, that you need to follow the directives of the state board of the New Jersey State Board, and that is the goals of student growth, learning, well-being, and success. I believe that our board has done such a fine job in the past of following these directions, and I think that the young lady that followed me had done such a great job. I don't want to repeat everything she said, but the mission statement of the Egg Harbor Township Board of embracing, engaging, and educating gives you a great start on the job that every single board member must have. Now, you know, it goes without saying that the attributes for success.
And that's your time, Mr. Merlino. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll call on Mr. Seppi. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can respond to what do you think the role of a board member of the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education is?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before all of you tonight. Very importantly, I think the key thing for a board member to be is successful. And in order to be successful, I think they should follow three key principles. And the board by itself is already quite successful. But firstly, the first principle that a successful person should follow is integrity in their work. When you work, you benefit the community. Hard work benefits us all. Furthermore, there's dedication. The principle of dedication, none of us can serve in any capacity without the dedication of running or applying, or no matter what it is we're doing. And finally, the last principle, which without the other two, it simply wouldn't exist, is cooperation. A successful board member cannot properly function if he cannot cooperate with his peers. I find that at least when I was a representative and a student of the district, cooperation on the board, I really saw through policy the positive impacts that that it had on the community. So, yes.
Thank you. I will next go to Mr. Merlino for the next question. You can answer this first. What are some of the strengths that you will bring to the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education?
Well, I have 30 years of accounting and tax experience. Early in my career, I was a special agent for Intertel, which was the security arm of Resorts International. And I was also security supervisor at Claridge, answering only to the board of directors of the Claridge ownership. And so I was entrusted with the integrity of the Claridge operating systems, and I was the only non-CPA to be credentialed by the Casino Control Commission and holding an endorsement on my key license for internal auditing. I was chief financial officer of a large convention service company, running payrolls for 600 to 800 employees from multiple unions. And I was also responsible for the budget of this multi-million-dollar corporation. As the owner of an accounting business, I've learned to work well with others, been very successful in my business, have one of the largest public accounting firms in the area, and probably with only 2 accountants, we do about 2,000 tax returns every tax season. I think that
a few seconds left. Appears Mr. Merlino's frozen. Okay. And there's the timer. Okay. We are going to move on. In the meantime, Mr. Seppi, if you can just unmute yourself and please explain, or please tell me what some of your strengths are that you will bring to the Board of Education.
Absolutely. So, first of all, and this is obvious with me, with someone of my age, I bring a fresh perspective. You know, I really have sympathy towards the district. I've been in it for a majority of my, for the time that I've been alive. So, I was born and raised in Egg Harbor Township, and I've had such a passion to serve. And, though I was a minor before, I served in a different capacity as the liaison. And, after, naming the principles that I named off in my previous answer, they really foil into what it is I'm going to do. And that dedication goes into, a hard fought campaign that I just went through. And quite frankly, that dedication and that perspective molded together is, what I will certainly have. Thank you.
I was still muted. Thank you, Mr. Seppi. Ms. Alabarda, what are some of the strengths that you will bring to the Board of Education?
So some of my strengths are I've great interpersonal skills. I love communication within a group and collaboration and finding answers for things. I attended a PD with Phil Boyd when I was serving on the EHT Board of Ed before. And that PD, I think, was probably one of the best ones I ever went to about how we have to be transparent. And I feel that that gave me even more stronger interpersonal skills than I had before. I also have very good research skills. I had to research a lot for my principal certificate and my internship. I just got done another certificate in July. And having research skills is good because on the board, we need to figure out how we can get grants and keep the costs down and still provide our students with the best services possible. One of the the goals of the board and the mission is to embrace the students. And that's all about social and emotional learning. I did a ton of research during my principal certificate, and internship. I even developed a mentoring program in my school, and we really learned to embrace our students there. So that's one of my strengths. I also learned about a lot of strategies to turn around low performing districts, with especially using social emotional learning and climate, even though EHT is not low performing as the school district I work in, but there are still a lot of strategies that could be used. I also look at problems that people complain about, and I come up with solutions. I am not a problem person, but I listen to those around me and I find solutions for the problems. So, and also during my principal certificate, I took a class in school law, finance, and curriculum.
And that is your time. Thank you, Ms. Alabarda. At this time, I will start with Mr. Seppi. Why do you want to be a member of the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education?
So,
I'm resetting.
It's okay. So a big reason why and I mentioned this last time, I really want to offer something new. I want to see something different on the board, and I really have a passion to want to serve the public. It's kind of innate within me, but I really love EHT, and I just want to do my civic duty towards my fellow neighbors, and that's that.
Okay, thank you for that. I will reset. And I will we'll go next to Ms. Alabarda. Why do you want to be a member of the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education?
Well, Mr. Seppi said almost exactly what I would say. Although I'm a little bit older than him by a few years, I did a majority of my school in Egg Harbor Township. And when I had kids, I moved back to Egg Harbor Township because I knew this is where I wanted my children to grow up. I absolutely loved the schools in Egg Harbor Township. They are fantastic, and we have fantastic teachers. I also want to be on the board again because I feel like I did a great job when I filled in previously, but I feel like I just got my feet wet. And I feel like the training that I had, although I know I would not be an administrator, but the training I had also helps the board because I can see both sides. And as a teacher, I love children, and I want to see the students in Egg Harbor Township be successful and be the best that they can be. And I know my graduating class, like you just look around and so many people are have great jobs now and they're very successful. So I want to continue that for our students that we have now. And I also love to volunteer too. When I see that there's a need, I always want to jump in and help out and really do the best for our kids.
Okay, thank you. Give me a chance to reset. And Mr. Merlino, if you would like to say why you would like to be a Board of Education member.
Well, I've lived in Egg Harbor Township for 33 of the past 40 years, raising 8 children, 6 graduating from Egg Harbor Township High School, 1 from ACIT, and 1 still in 6th grade, and also having 1 granddaughter graduating from Egg Harbor Township High School. Being a part of the campaign this year and talking to the residents of Egg Harbor Township, as a community, we will be much better positioned for the future by diligently and painstakingly building a culture of trust between the board and the taxpayers and the parents of Egg Harbor Township. That being said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention those taxpayers of Egg Harbor Township having finished 200 to 300 votes behind the last elected candidate and 2,000 votes ahead of the next candidate. I think it clearly shows the people's choice. I find it extraordinary that any candidates who did not pursue, did not be financially involved in, and never participated in this election process would be considered for this position. Um, I think that pursuing, putting my money where my mouth is, so to speak, kind of sets the tone for my candidacy, and here again, pursuing through this interview process. Thank you very much for that.
Okay. And you have 15 seconds left, and I wasn't sure if you wanted to finish your statement from your last question since you were frozen at the very end. It's up to you.
I'm good, Chair. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Ms. Alabarda for the next question. If you are appointed to the Board of Education, what is your vision or goal for the board to accomplish this year?
Okay, my mission and what I would love to accomplish this year, and you guys have already started it, is one of my passions was about full day kindergarten and preschool. Early literacy is so important, and you have to look at equity versus equality. And I was lucky and I worked really hard and I could afford to send my kids to full day pre-K and kindergarten. But to support equity, we need to make sure our lower socioeconomic students can have the same opportunities as my children have had. Okay, it's all about equity, and that's giving the students what they need to succeed. And that's going to be different for everybody. But when I am more than happy to support anything I can with getting the full day pre-K going, because it is, once we have early literacy with these students, we're going to reduce our costs with like RTI and basic skills and other problems that the students have as they get older because they were not exposed to the literacy when they were young.
Thank you. I will reset the clock and I will go to Mr. Merlino. If you are appointed to the Board of Education, what is your vision or goal for the board to accomplish this year? I'll give you an opportunity to unmute. I'm going to reset the clock.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One of the things I found interesting through these last few years is that we seem to try to push every child toward college. And although that I think it's a great pursuit, not all of children are college material. I think that sometimes we don't make vocational school and the military a proper choice for our students. And one of the things that I'm involved in outside of my work is I'm a veterans advocate and work directly with our active duty military and with our men and women who serve. And the post-GI Bill is without exception a great tool. And I think it would be remiss to not bring recruiters into the school to talk to our students, just as we would when we have our guidance counselors talking to our students about what would be their best college choice. So that's just one thing that I feel I would like to see the schools do and participate in that.
Thank you. Let me reset the clock. And we will go to Mr. Seppi. If you are appointed to the Board of Education, what is your vision or goal for the board to accomplish this year?
So I have three major goals that I would like to see set out for the district this year. And the first one is an expansion of trades education. I mean, we already have quite a robust program, but I would really like to see it built up even more. I mean, we have a wonderful wood shop program. We have STEM programs. We have at the high school an auto body shop. I mean, it's already wonderful. I wouldn't tear it down in any way. I would simply just build upon it and keep, rising it up so that, students are given more opportunity to achieve, different walks of business in their lives. The second is civics education. I want to see that expanded. And for sure, to me, that's near and dear to my heart, the whole subject of civics. But I feel that the more we teach our youth about our system, the more we play as an integral player in revitalizing, our democracy, both locally and, on large levels too. I mean, we could be really establishing strong leaders from youth. And finally, a very important one that I think is on everybody's mind is a safer district during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I find that, the district and the board has already done such a wonderful job. But a goal of mine on the board would to be, to have the staff, the students, everyone together, the faculty, to have the most safe and, comfortable educational experience as possible. And those would be my three major goals if I were appointed to the board. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, perfect timing. So Mr. Merlino, this next question goes to you first. Do you understand the time commitment, the ethical responsibilities, and the financial disclosure forms that you'll have to complete in order to be a board member?
Absolutely. Being an accountant and having handled candidates and assisting candidates throughout my career as an accountant, I understand exactly what would be my responsibilities, and I'm ready to take those responsibilities on. I think that without a doubt, my background in finance helps me in those areas. So I'm ready to embark on that trip with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll reset the clock. Mr. Seppi, do you understand the time commitment, the ethical responsibilities, and the financial disclosure forms that you'll have to complete in order to be a board member?
Absolutely. So for the time commitments, I've already been here, not as an official member, but as a student member. And I believe at least that I had a pretty good attendance record for when I was there. And that also follows into my principle of dedication. So that's the first thing concerning my time commitment. Secondly, for the financial forms that I have to fill out, I've been filling them out not for 33 years, but I've been filling them out for the past 6 months, which I'm sure other people in this call certainly have been doing. And I am prepared to follow all the guidelines behind the state regulation on, how I should, report for everything. Regarding the ethical concerns, I really think that, I'm an ethical person. I would follow whatever is, already placed in law. But I find that guidance from the other members on the Board of Education, if I'm lucky enough to serve with them, that will also push my ethical interests in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Seppi. Restart the clock. And Ms. Alabarda, do you understand the time commitment, the ethical responsibilities, and the financial disclosure forms that you'll have to complete in order to be a board member?
I honestly say that the first time I interviewed for the board, I probably really didn't understand the time commitment that you need to put in. But since I served on the Board of Education for 5 months, I understand exactly how much time you need to commit. And that's why I thank all the board members, because it takes dedication. And I had that dedication that it takes. And I'm very familiar with the financial paperwork because I have filled it out before. And ethics, I just finished a school law course not too long ago, and we did have to go over the ethics. And I went through this before, so yeah, I absolutely understand. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Alabarda. Let me just reset the clock. So this is your closeout statement. We will start with Mr. Seppi. So take 2 minutes to make a closing statement to tell us why you feel you should be the successful candidate.
So, and I've mentioned this, in fact, I mentioned it in my first question, but success to me is very important for the community. I love my community. I care for my community. And if I am not a successful board person, then what is it worth? So I intend on being one, and I expect to be one if lucky enough to be chosen. But when and if chosen, those three principles of integrity, dedication, and cooperation are really essential to anything that it is that I will do. We need to work together. We also need to have a fresh perspective in regard to that as well. Without each other's perspectives morphed together, I really don't think too much good will come out of the community. And I find that I have the freshest perspective out of my fellow colleagues here, but not to slight them in any way. But as I had said, I really care about this community, and I really think as an addition to this, local government, we will certainly benefit, because I intend to work as hardly as possible, and to work hard. I believe the fruits of my labor and the fruits of the labor of the entire Board of Education will really, really be sweet for the community and the staff, students, and faculty. It's really, to me, an essential thing that I am successful, and that together we are even more successful than we already have been in the years previous. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seppi. I will now go to Ms. Alabarda. I'll reset the clock first. Go to Ms. Alabarda. If you could please take 2 minutes to make a closing statement to tell us why you feel that you should be the successful candidate.
Sure. Embrace, engage, educate. How can we build a culture and climate that embraces, engages, and educates individual students and their learning needs? With a district so large, it is a tall order to ensure all students are successful. As a board member, I will work seamlessly with the rest of the board, be open to ideas, think outside the box, research, and together make decisions that are good for the students and staff. We must maintain a positive climate to ensure the school's culture promotes student achievement in all aspects. I will also help the district to navigate through this pandemic. Social and emotional well-being must be at the forefront. I have been trained and completed research in social emotional learning through my studies. I will also continue to attend trainings like the ones I attended before with Phil Boyd and Marian Friedman. I'm a lifelong learner, and I enjoy learning every single day. I'm also very culturally aware, which helps in a culturally diverse school district such as ours. I worked in the casino for 12 years and on a cruise ship for 1.5 years with people from all around the world. I taught ESL for 18 years in culturally diverse school districts. In my school, I assisted with the implementation of the Amistad curriculum, as well as Holocaust and Latino history. I was very happy that I got my feet wet when I filled in on the board previously. I want to continue to help EHC schools to come up with new and innovative ways to successfully navigate into the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that concludes our rounds of questions for the board candidates who applied. We want to thank you for your time.
Could I get an opportunity to speak here?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're not highlighted yet. You're right. You were going last. You were going to close us out the right way, Mr. Merlino.
That's okay. I thought maybe I didn't hear it.
You know what? Last but not least, absolutely. So if you can please take 2 minutes to make a closing statement to tell us why you feel that you should be the successful candidate.
Okay. Well, I think it goes without saying there's certain attributes that you must have to be a successful member of the Board of Education. One of them is being able to listen, whether it's listening to the superintendent, listening to the educators, listening to the parents who have the best interests of their children in mind. But you also need to lend an ear to the taxpayers. They've entrusted 65% of their tax bill to school district tax. And as such, in some aspects, we do answer to them. I think that having a high ethical and moral standard should also be required. And I feel that my background attributes to that. We also need to remember that our children are our future, and therefore the best quality education is essential to their future. And I feel that my background, having had 8 children through the school system, gives me a pretty good leg up on what's needed and what it takes for our students to be successful. And I want to thank the board for this opportunity, and hope that I'm the person you choose. Thank you very much. God bless.
And thank you, Mr. Merlino. At this time, it really is going to be the end of the candidate rounds of questions. We want to thank you all for your time and your interest and your willingness to serve. I will turn the meeting over back to Mr. Castellano for any closing remarks before we ask for motion for executive.
I just want to thank you, Chandra, for doing an excellent job running our interview process. And I also, again, want to thank all 3 of our applicants for being with us tonight and for being willing to put yourself out there, put yourself forward. That, is something to be congratulated in itself. Anytime you put yourself forward and say, I want to do something, give me a shot, deserves credit. And we thank you for your willingness to serve, all 3 of you, for coming forward, being with us tonight. And so what we will do now at this point is the board is going to go into executive session to discuss the appointment. And so with that, I will look for a motion to go into executive session. I see Lou and
Mrs. Barca and Mrs. Bird. Okay.
all in favor? We are adjourned to executive session. Okay, for members of the public, we are back in open session. We've conducted interviews, reviewed resumes and letters for our board candidates, and have discussed it in executive session, and have arrived at a nominee. And I'm going to ask Ms. Anaya to read our resolution for 4.1 that we will now act on.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. So we're asking for a motion for a resolution to appoint Ms. Terry Alabarda as a new board member to serve up through reorganization of 2022.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Mrs. Bird?
Mr. Price, Mr. Price, I make the motion.
Price, yep. We have a second.
I'll second.
You got it. Okay.
Second by Mrs. Bird.
Okay. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for then a roll call, please.
Mr. Della Barca?
Terry Alabarda.
Yes. Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price, yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
No, for the reasons stated in executive.
Mrs. Salagi?
No, for the reasons stated in executive.
Mrs. Bird?
Yes, for the reasons stated in executive.
And Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
And motion passes.
Thank you. So again, I want to congratulate Miss Alabarda for being appointed this evening to the board. But I also want to thank the other applicants as well, Mr. Merlino and Mr. Seppi, for coming this evening, presenting themselves, and being willing to serve as well. This now is going to lead us into the next portion of our meeting. We are playing catch up, having had to cancel last week's meeting because of pandemic related issues. So we're going to be hearing several, before we're going to hear a brief superintendent's report. We're going to hear several budget related reports, first the preschool expansion and then our math and science curriculum. And, I just want to start off, by again, thanking our administration and our wonderful teachers and our staff for the great job that they are doing. We have unfortunately had to pivot back to virtual learning this past week, and that was due to a combination of factors. We have seen a rise in cases everywhere in the greater area and in our district. Atlantic County was raised to a threat level orange, which would make it very difficult, if not impossible, for our middle and high schools to function in a hybrid model because they change classes. And I'll let Dr. Gruccio expand on that. And the other problem that we have run into, as many districts are, has been a staffing shortage. And all three of those factors together, unfortunately, we had to go back to remote for a while. We hope to be back as soon as possible. We are also dealing with a quarantine situation in our central office, which makes life even more difficult. I just want to say to students and parents that we understand this is a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everyone. I think we all see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We're hearing of, the coming of vaccines. We're hearing of more effective treatments. But unfortunately, right now, we are in a spike, and we have to deal with that the best way we can. And the reasons are very simple. The health, safety, and welfare of students, teachers, staff, and their family and loved ones has to be number one right now. So I want to thank everyone, board members, and all those that I've already thanked for the wonderful job that they're doing under these very difficult circumstances. And I want to say to our students and parents, please hang in there. We're going to get through this. And so with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Gruccio, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Castellano, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to December. I hope everyone enjoyed a peaceful Thanksgiving, as I did myself. Just a few updates with the current state of our school district, and Mr. Castellano touched on a few, and I will elaborate. But as we all know, we had to pivot back to all virtual teaching and learning. And as we stated prior to this summer in our Road Back to School plan, we needed to be ready at any point to pivot back and forth into virtual, into in-person hybrid, and we wanted that to be as smooth as possible. And I realized that this was frustrating to some, parents, students, teachers, and administration alike. However, we just got to the point where this organization was seeing almost 70 cases of COVID-19 in just our district in just 1 month alone since we reopened and instituted the hybrid model. Each case is unique in itself, and it requires a thorough investigation, and that's called contact tracing, that resulted in us having to close classrooms for some staff and student alike to be placed on quarantine status. Cases and the need for quarantining has really affected all areas of our district: transportation, food services, custodial, educational, and administrative staff as well. So taking that all into consideration, coupled with over 135 staff members out on some type of leave, a shortage in substitutes, not only in the district, but in the area and in the state, and teachers and administration covering classes, we've had a difficult time delivering quality education to students on a consistent basis with too many people in and out. So as Mr. Castellano touched on, I also want to explain the New Jersey Department of Education's COVID-19 activity level, which is at a high level right now, and it is referred to as orange. And while the state saw clusters of orange in the central and north, the southeast region in which we are located just turned to orange last Wednesday afternoon. And please want everyone to understand that the guidance for orange reads differently and is more strict than the yellow moderate risk status that we were once in. Orange status has criteria that includes contact tracing, quarantining for anyone with a sniffle, a sneeze, or a cough, and this extends to their siblings. Testing that occurs in any household with students or staff would require the whole household to quarantine until results come back. Return to school for anyone would include medical clearance, and this alone would add to our staff shortage. There are also restrictions that were placed on activities, gatherings, closing of cafeterias, and student interaction with multiple cohorts. And as Mr. Castellano touched on, and I explained to the board in our last meeting, this would be cause for our middle schools and high school to have to go all virtual. So I appreciate your understanding of what this entails for a large school district. And my decision did not come easy. And it really definitely comes with the health, safety, and welfare of our staff and students in mind. I also want to make it clear, and particularly to folks who question the process, that this decision was discussed and approved by the Atlantic County Superintendents of Schools, and that was done by a phone call, 4:45 a.m. in the morning to be exact, and with the consultation of the Atlantic County Department of Public Health soon after that morning. I completed the state form and submitted our status to the New Jersey Department of Education via the Atlantic County Department of Education. I have been reminded that Dr. Fauci said, close the restaurants and the bars, but keep the schools open. Well, I understand, and we all want our schools to open, but schools can only be open when there's enough healthy staff to operate them. And we're not there right now. So lastly, I have been contacted about concerns regarding special education and our special education students and program. And I thoroughly understand, and I am sure that Atlantic County Special Services is going through the same worries right now with their closure. But Mr. Dorso, our special education director, has reached out. He's taken the time to reach out to all the parents to share that we realize that there is no substitute for in-person learning. And he's informed them that with a letter that we've improved our ability to provide individual instruction that's consistent with the IEP mandates, and we'll do that virtually via our Google Meet. We will also be providing additional support with paraprofessionals, targeted one-on-one instruction, small group lessons, and recorded lessons to review later. Related services will be provided via Google Meet. And of course, if anyone has any further concerns, Mr. Dorso and his staff are readily available to discuss particulars with any and all parents. Lastly, I am confident we are better now in our virtual setting than we were before. We have learned a lot, we've grown, and we've surely improved. So please know that everyone in our school community has worked hard to keep our schools open. We had a routine for health checks and sanitizing and cleaning, and it all worked well. And now virtually folks are working just as hard, if not harder, to engage our students and care for our students and families. We have social emotional assistance in place for this transition. Our guidance counselor, IRNS teams, child study teams, assistant principals, and central office are all ready to support you each and every day of this journey. So thank you again for your flexibility, your patience, and ultimately for your understanding of what all of this entails. It again comes down to the health, safety, and welfare of our children and our staff of Egg Harbor Township School District. And with that, Mr. Castellano will move on with our agenda under presentations. And that brings us to the preschool expansion grant presentation, in which Chandra and I, our business administrator, and Mr. Ray Dorso, our Director of Special Education, will share with you more details about our preschool expansion grant.
All right, give us a minute while Miss Anaya gets the PowerPoint up. Okay, so we just wanted to give everybody a recap and an update as to where we're at in the status of applying for the preschool expansion aid. We submitted the grant on Monday. We expect to hear back on the 18th of December. So just to recap, we currently did apply. The requirements for the program entail a full day program, 6 hours each day. 1 hour is embedded into that program for nap time. Outdoor play is a big part of the program as well. Just to recap, our current situation is that we have 5 classrooms, each have an AM and a PM section. We have a 15 student maximum, which is consistent with code and will be the same with our preschool expansion aid if we get it. We currently have 110 students in the program, and we use creative curriculum, and we use the most updated version of that, which is referred to as the guided edition. All right, just to recap, our goal within 5 years is to obtain 90% of our universe. Our universe is determined by taking the number of our current first grade students, multiplying that by 2, because we'll have 3 and 4-year-olds in the program. And that's going to give us around 900 students, and 90% of that is 810. So our goal for February 1st is to have 14 in-district full-day programs and up to 8 with a partner preschool, a local provider. So that means in the next 4 years, we're going to have to add another 480 students, which equates to 32 classes, 10 classes of which will be next school year, hopefully with the same provider or other local providers. And then 24 classes the following years up to the 24-25 school year. We're kind of already hitting the ground running. We're starting our outreach. This little slide is going to be ready to roll out on social media. Again, just to reiterate, our current number is 110 students, and our goal for February 1st, 2021 is up to 330 students. And this, of course, is pending PEA funding. Just so the public and the board members are aware, there is a possibility that the state comes back and says that we're awarded with some funding, but perhaps not the entire amount. It's dependent upon how many other school districts apply and the strength of our submission. This is also went out on social media. We did post for positions already. We already have a decent amount of applicants for different positions. I'll review the different positions in a couple minutes. So for the grant, part of the guidance from the state, a document is called the implementation guidelines. When we wrote the grant, we really had to rely heavily on the guidelines to inform what we put into the grant. So the positions that we have built into the grant is a $15,000 stipend for supervising the program, a full-time master teacher, another full-time staff member that's going to be 0.5 master teacher and 0.5 community parent involvement specialist. Per code, you need to have at least 1 full-time teacher, master teacher, for every 20 classes. And we're also going to have a full-time preschool intervention and referral specialist. That's going to be our point person for the preschool intervention and referral services team, which is the equivalent to intervention and referral services. Additional staff will include a full-time school social worker and a bilingual social worker, 14 preschool teachers, which will be obviously an increase from the 5 that we currently have. And for each room, it'll have a paraprofessional, also a full-time secretary. I have the social worker positions highlighted in yellow because initially at the last presentation, Ms. Anaya and I presented that we had initially planned on having speech and language pathologists built into the budget. However, in reviewing the implementation guidelines, we thought that it would be a stronger proposal for the district if we included social workers, because social workers are really more heavily valued in the implementation guidelines. And we also consulted with a representative that used to work for the DOA and now works with a consulting agency called NEAR. And that was her advisement also. So we did make a change to that. The following slides are actually based on what we submitted in the grant. In the grant, there were 7 different components, and each component we had to submit a 2-page write-up about the our plan. So the first, there is an emphasis in the program for community collaboration and planning, and the .5 position is our community parent involvement specialist. That's going to be our point person to run our ECAC, which is an early childhood advisory council. That council will meet 2 times this year and 4 times each further year. So next year we'll run that out at 4 times. And there's going to be community members, business members, and parents on that team. The curriculum development and child assessment piece, we do have to have a state approved curriculum, and it has to be a current edition. We do have a current state approved curriculum, which is creative curriculum, and we have the newest edition. The other emphasis in this part of the grant application was they wanted to know how we are going to address our English language learners, and they want to ensure that we have a articulation from pre-K through 3rd grade. Basically what that means is that our kindergarten teachers are going to know what the preschool students are learning. Our preschool teachers are going to know what the expectations are in kindergarten, and so forth. Another piece of the grant application included how we're going to provide training for our team members. And so all of our new team members, teachers, and other staff will get trained in creative curriculum. Our master teacher is going to have to take specific DOE master teacher classes. We'll also have to be trained in ECHRS 3. Our PERS person will be trained in the teaching pyramid observation tool, which is referred to TPOT. And then obviously our other onboarding training that all staff members have to have. Inclusion is another one of the components. The state mandates that the ratio is 10 gen ed students to 5 special ed students. The preferred ratio is actually 12 to 3. Our 12 to 3 ratio will be at the provider site. Our goal will eventually be get to that 12 to 3 ratio, but initially I think that's going to take us some time based on the number of classified students we currently have in our inclusion programs. The other big pieces of the inclusion part include the preschool intervention and referral specialist, the school social workers, and of course the PERT team. Program evaluation is really developed in 3 different phases. One is students, and for that we utilize the Teaching Strategies Gold, which is the program that evaluates preschool students and is closely aligned to creative curriculum. Classroom component is assessed by our ECHRS 3 and the TPOT, and the overall program is assessed by NJ Grow Kids, which is a program that we're going to have to register with. And Ms. Anaya, if you want to speak to your budget piece.
Sure, and as Mr. Dorso said, we are seeking to go up to 330 students. So we did put the application for $3.2 million broken out here based on students who are going to be serviced by Egg Harbor Township schools and students served by providers outside. There is more money going out to the outside because, again, we can only pay for general education students. And as Mr. Dorso said, the ratio of 12 to 3, they will have some special ed students in their classroom, but we can't pay them for that. So their allocation is a little bit higher. Our special ed students will be funded through our local budget as they are right now. We just can't expand outside of general education. We'll just be maintaining what we have for special ed, have to serve them. The expenditures, basically on the total budget, when I said, $3.2 million was what the application was for gen ed. It was just over $1 million, 1.2 actually for special ed, which makes it a almost $5 million budget for the preschool program itself. How is that going to be spent? In our application, we talked about salaries for our staff. That was spoken about already. Health benefits, they're all full-time, and also FICA, which is an employer share of Social Security taxes. Professional development to implement this program, classroom furniture, the curriculum, consumables. To pay the providers we're going to be partnering with. Transportation, because that is a mandate with this program. Since we transport the rest of the district, we have to transport 3- and 4-year-olds, as well as outdoor playground equipment, which is mandated with this program. Want to go ahead or next steps? Basically, tonight we're asking for a resolution to approve the grant application as submitted, basically talking about the staffing, the programs, what we just highlighted. We'll ask for resolution at the end of this presentation. We have already posted on our website the positions. We'll be publicly advertising on our website, social media, all the things you saw on the other slide tomorrow morning to help with recruitment and getting the word out for this program. We'll be going through the interview process to have everything lined up. The notice of award from the state will come December 18th. And from that, again, we're asking for the special board meeting on the 22nd, which is the following Tuesday, to go ahead and approve any new personnel to implement this grant. Through the months of December and January, we'll be gathering information to be placing orders and some onboarding with professional development with the staff, ready to go for February 1st implementation.
Okay, thank you both for the work that you put into that and the time that you spent. I know that even over Thanksgiving break, you were tightening things up. And I know it's a lot, and we have a lot of things coming at us in a short amount of time, but it's where we are, and it's an opportunity that I think we will greatly benefit from. I'm very excited about it, and we're looking for your support to pass this resolution so that we can move forward. And from here, well, that thing's going to happen real quick, because you see that timeline is real quick. But again, because of COVID, the state got backed up a little bit. This is something we might have known about, in July, August, but here we are, December, trying to squeeze everything in. But I thank everyone for the work that they put into it and the attention to detail. So thank you. Okay. Any questions?
I'm just going to thank you very much for the presentation. And again, I want to highlight, we're able to offer preschool because we stuck to our guns and we implemented full day kindergarten. Without full day kindergarten, we would not have been able to qualify for this grant. It's essentially 2 for 1 and all to benefit students. And I've said it before, the single most important thing we can do for student achievement is to bring our early childhood component up to where it needs to be. That's full day kindergarten and that's preschool. And we're doing the right thing. And I'm going to go to Mrs. Bird next.
Thank you. I have a few questions. The aid in the classrooms, it said, I think 1 aid per classroom was on one of the slides. Is that aid a result of the grant, like a requirement of the grant, or is it a requirement because there's a special education population in the classroom?
That's a requirement of the grant. It's one teacher and one paraprofessional per room.
Okay, so then would there be a possibility of having additional aides in the classroom to assist students based on IEP needs?
That is a definite possibility, but it wouldn't be funded through the grant.
Right. Okay. So were those figures used to add to that 4-point-something million fee we saw, or expense we saw?
Miss and I could probably speak to that piece, but I can also tell you that just we also have a special education teacher that works with the inclusive students, and that would be funded through local funds. But that staff member is going in and also supporting students in the inclusive classes.
And I can just speak on if there is a need for IEP driven 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 type of ratio versus a classroom helper, it would be funded locally. What's in that number, that $4.4 million number, is our current staff added with all the mandates. Like that special ed teacher Mr. Dorso just mentioned isn't part of the grant, but is part of our budget for special ed that has to be supported in the preschool program. As of right now, it's the one teacher, one para, to be evaluated afterwards. And keep in mind for the rest of the board members, I know Mrs. Bird, you definitely know the difference, but for other board members, there is a separation between this program and preschool disabled, which is the full-time program for the MD students, which are definitely better, which are definitely having, 1-to-1, 2-to-1 ratio, high needs in that classroom. So it is a little bit different.
Okay. I guess my final question is, when we're talking about an inclusion preschool classroom, we're going to have a push-in teacher that goes in between different classrooms to handle IEPs, or is the teacher a special education teacher for the whole classroom? So I guess what I'm asking is, are we going to have to hire more staff to go into the classrooms if we have, kids who have diverse learning needs?
It's obviously going to be dependent upon student need. If we eventually have that need, we'll have to program for that. But right now, the special education teacher, and we anticipate aligning ourselves more with the preferred model of the state, which is a consult model. So they're really pushing hard for our students to be included and encourage us to move away from having students in the PSD classes and more students in the inclusive environment. And perhaps to do that, maybe eventually down the road, we'll end up reducing our preschool disabled staffing, and rather having that 7 teachers in that program, one of those teachers maybe end up supporting more inclusive students.
Okay.
Okay, good. Anyone else before Ms. Gilbert-Floyd?
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and thank you for providing the guidelines of what the state is requiring in order for the grant to take place. And I'm just glad to see that that all the needed staffing is in place when it comes to the preschool program, because it is definitely a separate, it's a part of the district, but it is an entire separate entity which requires so much support. And one thing, was it the early intervention team, or was it a PERT team that you had for the preschool students, which sometimes can identify students who may come in with a disability? And the other thing was the 14 full-time paraprofessional positions. I just wanted to say that, or I just wanted to ask, I guess the question is, are we going to make sure that, not make sure, but are we going to look into those paraprofessionals that may be part-time now, or is it just going to be more so like, whoever the district feels like is, based on interviews and everything, who will be the best qualified to be a part of the preschool program? But are we going to look internally first to fill those positions, those 14 full-time positions first?
All right, so the first part of the question, so the staff member that's going to work on the intervention piece is the preschool and intervention referral specialists. And I understand like the code is being reworked to include that language. It used to just kind of be the PERT team, and then you had a specialist as a part of that. But now they gave that person a specific designation as preschool intervention and referral specialist. And that's our main point person for the PERT team, which is the preschool intervention referral team. And then obviously our social workers, probably myself, CST member, building administrator will also be on that PERT team.
Okay.
As far as the paraprofessionals, we always encourage our internal part-time staff, if they're interested, to apply. And that posting is live right now, and we have a decent amount of internal candidates as we speak.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Excellent. So we're going to move into our next presentation.
Okay, keeping on track with our budget development, we have been having our supervisors come to the board and present what they have done, what they're doing now, some of the adjustments they had to make because of the COVID-19 situation, and where they're looking to go. It'll be a short presentation by our math supervisor, followed by a short presentation by our science supervisor. And we will begin now. If we can start loading Mr. Ryan, who is our supervisor of mathematics, K through 12, and he's going to present to you a little update regarding the math department. So just so the board knows, we have created a format now that we're going to follow that's going to be simple and clear for you. It's not going to have resources or dollars or whatever. It's just going to be based on the goals that the supervisors created, okay? Because we have to get into the money piece yet as we move forward with their presentations to us at our central office roundtable. All right, go ahead, Mr. Ryan. Hello.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me in to present tonight. For those that don't know, my name is Greg Ryan. I'm the math supervisor for the district. And tonight I'm here just to, talk about some adjustments that we've made as we've transitioned from, normal school years into last spring and then into this 2021 school year. So first and foremost, we knew we couldn't keep doing what we've always been doing. I mean, it was a shame. We were moving right along well in our plan. We were enhancing assessments, revamping curriculum, delivering impactful PD that I want to thank the board again for approving and for empowering us to provide our math workshop PD, which was a 3-year series, but it wasn't going to work this year for obvious reasons. So I took a step back and really thought about what I needed to know and what we as a district needed to know how to move forward. We talked about, what was working, what wasn't working, what could still work this year, and what we needed to change. Because, obviously, a lot needed to change, which is fine. You have to do what you have to do. So I really came up with 3 steps of a plan. The first step was really just to find out what was taught last year compared to what's normally taught in a normal year, to really support teachers so they can best support students in student learning. So as you can see on the chart on the screen, we looked at every single class from K to 12, and we assessed every single standard from every single teacher to see what was taught in person last year, what was taught virtually, what was taught both, or what was taught or what wasn't taught at all, to really get a picture of where we were, because I didn't think we could possibly move forward until we knew exactly where we were and what gaps existed. So when we analyzed all that, we put that information in the teachers' hands, we told them to look at it, and we really broke it down and discussed exactly where those gaps were, so we knew coming into this school year where we were. We weren't coming in guessing. We were coming in knowing what happened last year and what needed to happen this year. The second step was we had to revamp our professional development. Again, I really wanted to make it my best effort to empower the teachers to put them in the best possible position to succeed, because I think our success enhances student success, and that was a major focus. We had a great professional development series rolling on. That was a 3-year, really hands-on, intense math workshop model PD. That just couldn't work this year. So I spoke with the presenters and I spoke with other people in other districts, and we really revamped that entire thing to focus on how can we align our professional development with virtual instruction. So our presenter came in, he did a great job, collaborated with teachers. We discussed what went right, what went wrong in the spring. We talked about what we can do differently moving into the fall. And he also shared some amazing open digital open resources that teachers could use any day in their instruction for free, that really is built for remote instruction. And that really just kind of added to their toolbox on a daily basis. And I'm hoping, and it seems like in feedback we heard from teachers, that it really did provide, a plethora of things to try coming into this school year. So we weren't, so we had a solid plan in place. And then the third thing, now that we knew what standards were covered last year, we knew it wasn't covered last year, and we also revamped our PD to align with virtual instruction, we sat down and we looked at our EHT specific curriculums at every single grade level. We knew we had to prioritize and we knew changes had to be made. Last year we didn't get through everything we wanted to, and we knew this year we potentially might not get through everything we wanted to. So we looked at every curriculum at every grade level, and we really honed in on the major content that students will both need to know in future math classes, as well as for any state assessments, and just for the level of content mastery that we deem proficient and we feel comfortable with. And we went through and we talked about our sequence, talked about how did it look in previous years, what needs to change this year to make sure that when students leave the class in June, whether we're hybrid, virtual, in person, some combination of all three, we're going to do our absolute best and can almost guarantee that we get through that major content so they succeed this year and can succeed moving forward as well. And then we also want to take it one step farther. So far, I've been talking about a global picture, I guess, of courses as a whole. But we also wanted to make sure that we drilled down to individual students. That's been a major focus of the district in general, but also of mine across the math program, K-12, is that we are identifying individual learning gaps, because we all know one size does not fit all. So we really did look to strengthen our interventions and our plan and our model. So we are doing that progress monitoring. We are doing those formative assessments that we started, a few years ago, major focus. Our professional development last year focused on it. And even throughout remote and virtual, we're still finding where those students are struggling. So if I'm struggling at, say, algebraic expressions, a teacher will know that and they'll see that and they'll be able to pull me into those small groups when we're covering algebraic expressions and focus more on what I need, not just what the class needs, because everyone is different. And we're really hoping as we monitor this data that students are catching back up to grade level. Whereas I think the fear, if you talk to people around other schools, other places, is that those gaps will only widen. We're doing our absolute best to not let that happen. And if anything, start closing some of those gaps and be on top of it every step of the way. And with that being said, we also wanted to, the standards and the teaching and the learning are extremely important and my main focus. But we did want to also make sure that students were still engaged and collaborative and enjoying math. So we didn't want to throw all that out the window. So we try to find ways to, still have some community involvement and some fun things to do. So, since we couldn't leave the building, we brought some virtual field trips in. This picture on the screen is actually a calculus play, which is just as fun and entertaining as it sounds, just so students could get some out of classroom experience without actually going out of the classroom. And teachers across the district did an amazing job with this. And different community organizations, I'll tip my hat to them as well. They offered a lot of free things to us and things like that. We just built a lot of connections there. And it was great. And students, I think, really enjoyed it. And along with that, just the engagement and having fun with math. It might sound silly, but I think it's important, maybe now more than ever. We try to keep it light a little bit while we're doing our math. On the left, it's probably hard to tell, but that was just a Google Meet that took place around Halloween. And the students and the teacher dressed up in their costumes. Halloween and trick-or-treating was very different for a lot of people this year. So we still want to have something for them to look forward to, as they're learning. Nothing wrong with enjoying it as you're doing it. On the right, on that last screen, you don't have to go back, but it was just an interactive Ninja Turtles design project. Just something that students can relate to and know outside of the classroom. It's not the same dry math that they do every day. And on this screen, this is something we were pretty proud of. This is just one example. There's examples across the district. But this was during hybrid instruction. You'll see a student on the left that is in person, a student on the right that is virtual, but they're doing the same thing. They're collaborating together. They were working on the same objective, and they're getting the same educational opportunities, whether you're virtual, whether you're in person. And they were working together on this. And it's hard to tell, but they're wearing those hats with different equations and place value numbers on there. And it almost hopefully felt a little like normal schooling for a change. And they were working with their classmates and having fun and getting the same thing done, whether in person or virtual. So we really focused on, the social emotional piece as well. Again, probably focus on it more than we have in the past for the math, because I think we saw it was more important than ever. These students need some of that and need to know their classmates are with them and they're not by themselves, even if they are distance. They still have their peers and they can still collaborate. And it is okay to still have fun while you're learning, things like that. And that was really it. That was our major plan. But I do want to thank you again for allowing me to speak tonight. And I want to thank the board and administration for supporting everything we've been doing throughout this year, because you really made it a lot easier on me. Anything I brought up has been, completely supported. And I'm hoping and thinking that students and teachers are benefiting, and we hope to keep moving that forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Great job. It's great to see that we're hitting all the district learning goals of improving student achievement, climate and culture, and the community connections piece, which, as you said, it's a little difficult to do virtually, but very creative and innovative there. I like that. And I like how you showed, that kids concurrently are learning the same thing and able to do the same. So thank you so much for your presentation this evening. And we're going to move to Mr. Velarde, who is the supervisor of science, K through 12.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Just going to wait for the PowerPoint to come up. All right, we can go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, so what I'm just going to talk to you about is, science. We're in a good spot with our standards. I know Greg spoke about identifying the major content in their area. For us in science, the standards are pretty general. Where our bread and butter comes in is doing a lot of the activities in the labs that we typically would do. Right now we're looking at a situation where we probably have to, try and reduce those because of the situation we're in. But that doesn't mean stop them completely. I included right now a couple of pictures here on the slide of a teacher doing demonstrations while we were in hybrid and social distancing could occur. We did attempt to still do some activities. But moving forward, that we're 100% virtual right now, our teachers will continue to kind of modify what would normally be done in the classroom in a lab situation and do their best to show the kids live demonstrations and even, have the kids and the students do stuff at home that they can safely do, from, grabbing things outside, different types of leaves. Right now we're in the fall. Elementary school kids can go through the yard, pick up leaves, bring them in, do different demonstrations with that. So that's one of the major adjustments we're doing, is we're looking at maybe a reduction in some of the activities that we would normally do to support some of the content that we teach. All right, next slide, please. Along with what Matt said, one of our big things is getting kids out there to experience some of the things they're learning. One of our major field trips was to Stockton University with COVID happening and people trying to do their social distancing. That wasn't a sign for us to stop. It was just a sign for us to figure out a different way to do it. And one of the ways we came up with was a virtual field trip to Stockton University. We just did that this past fall. And what we did was we did it online. We had, multiple presenters going through talking about careers in the healthcare industry, talking about the advanced degrees and the local colleges that the students could get to and go to and, get those certifications. You can go to the next slide. With that virtual field trip, they got to hear about 7 different speakers discuss the different career paths in the healthcare industry. Next slide, please. One of the things that was great to see from my perspective is being that it wasn't a live field trip and it was virtual, I was curious to see the type of interaction our students would have with the presenters. And what we saw was there was incredible interaction, even while the presentation was going on via the transcript and the professor speaking. The chat room was live with questions from students going back and forth with the presenters, and everybody was in on the Google Meet. And I was looking at the timestamp, and it was just question after question showing student engagement. So I was pretty excited to see that the virtual field trip really did do a nice job. All right. What we also did, one of our major components of the science program is our community partnerships. And once COVID hit and this was being limited again, we could either, pack up our tent, or we can figure out a better way or a different way to do it. And one of the things that we've been doing are the continuing on with virtual community partnerships. Up on our screen here is just a couple of examples of people in the community that came in to speak with our students. The great thing is you're looking at 3 former EHE students that are in physician assistant programs, that are in nursing programs. So it's great that they can give their perspective from that of a former EHT student to that of a current professional and current college student. Next slide, please. One of the things that we've also seen is, we always talk about trying not to teach in silos, and what we're starting to see with, the perceived limited time within the classroom, we're starting to see how content is now becoming merged. All right, what you see in front of you is the merging of a science lesson as well as a math lesson. You're looking at shapes and geometrical figures being put together with science concepts, forces, push and pull magnets. All right, so this is great to see how we're starting to kind of come together. Next slide just shows it again. Got to advance on. And that is pretty much all I have for you right now. All right, thank you very much for hearing me out. I appreciate all your support, and want to wish you a great night.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Velarde, for highlighting what's going on. While it's very different in the way it looks, it still is very similar in what we're doing. So thank you so much for your innovation and for joining us this evening and sharing what's going on in science. And with that, Mr. Castellano, there were our 3 presentations for you this evening, and I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Ryan and Mr. Velarde as well. I see board member hands. Ms. Gilbert-Floyd.
I just want to say, yes, thank you for the great presentations on math and science. And I know personally math was my favorite subject in school, my best subject. I'm just kidding. It was not. So math is, but math is so important. And, I just wanted to say that since I do have the math supervisor, I don't know if he left or if he's still on here. I just have to say, since I have a 2-part question or statement. One, I do, and all my children's teachers, have been very supportive and very helpful and really going above and beyond. I do have to give a shout out to my son's math teacher, Miss Nine. She's a math teacher at the middle school, and someone with, Mr. Ryan, you just need to know this, someone with so much energy and enthusiasm about math. There's some days I'm home and I can hear her just going, and she's going, she's making math fun, she's meeting the kids, where they are, and it's just refreshing to see. And she has such a great personality, and it comes through when she teaches and works with the children. So on the flip side of my statement is, and I guess it's more so for central administration, and I'm not saying that you all haven't thought about this or you haven't had the conversation, but I would be remiss if I didn't say this. And I'm saying this as a parent and just someone who's, has 2 children in the school system. One is seeming to have great success with remote learning. The other one is more difficult. So with that being said, just to make sure that we're looking at the amount of assignments that are being required by, for the students. And I also think just to take a look at it, whether, how we can streamline the curriculum in some type of way, at least when we're doing remote instruction, virtual learning, because there are so many students who are home and some are home alone. And there are children who they will get on there, they'll do what they're supposed to do, they'll be where they're supposed to be every single time. But then we also know we have students who, if they have the opportunity to, hey, be in school and be attentive, or, have something on the side doing a game or something that they like. So I just saying, as a parent, I know I have heard that constantly. I just have heard people say, I just the kids can't keep up, because I think, teachers are trying to cover material and make sure they get to it. But I just want us just to think about how we can make sure that, the children are getting, having exposure to the concepts they need, to prepare them for the next grade level, but also consider the situation that we're in this present situation, which is totally different than anything we ever had. So those are the things that I was really just wanted to say, and thank you for the presentation. But those are the main things that I see, even from a parent perspective, as it can be somewhat overwhelming when you're trying to, people are working and trying to make sure their children are doing what they're supposed to do. And the amount of assignments, if we could just look at that, if we already have it, I think that's a major, major concern for a lot of parents in the community.
Yep, you're right on. We just released our new teaching and learning guidelines for our teachers, and a memo that I just reviewed that went out today, and I made sure I highlighted that point right there. We don't expect you to do what you've done. We need to cut back. We need to slow down. We need to see where kids are now that they've pivoted back, and see, making sure that we engage them again before we education. So yes, we are on that, and the supervisors can attest. We've had that discussion. They've had that discussion amongst themselves. What has to be slowed down, and particularly the amount of assignments. And we're not looking at delivering busy work, if you will. Okay.
Yeah.
That is not what I want. They know that, and you'll see a difference with that.
Okay, because I'm really concerned about that, and also, like I said, special ed kids who, and it may not be the special ed students who are have more severe needs. It may be that special ed student who is in inclusion or in pull-out resource, where they literally, like, they have a hard time keeping up when they're in school. So in front of a computer, they're even if they want the attention span. So I did see the student expectations for remote learning, and I just wanted to reiterate to say, thank you for that. And I think the teachers just knowing that, hey, listen, because I know teachers do worry about, if I'm getting observed, or if someone thinks I'm doing enough or not too much. But this is a special time, and I just want to make sure that we're all
thank you.
Same page. So thank you.
Mr. Alabarda, and then Mrs. Bird.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tamika, what you're saying is so right on. As you know, as a county president, I get to participate in state meetings every week almost, or every other week. And the most recent one is going to be reemphasized again tomorrow night at our county meeting, which is 7 o'clock tomorrow night, everybody, for the Atlantic County School Boards Association. And it's going to be about state assessment, and it chimes right in with what's going on here. All the people that were discussing state assessments yesterday, superintendents from North Jersey, a superintendent from Ocean County, and all these board members were all in favor of doing away with state assessments. It's just something that we're hoping NJ School Boards Association supports and goes to the appropriate people in government to do something about this year. And talking about student teacher evaluation, the same thing, how we need to be careful how we evaluate teachers this year. Basically, the tenured teachers are there. We have a history. Let's not worry about them. And then the non-tenured have conversations with and discussions, but make it a little bit different than what we're used to. And the whole thing boils down to, and trying to summarize, is something we're always thinking about: the individual kids and what they're doing, and the social emotional concerns. And it seems to be the point that I'm hearing, and I agree with. Don't worry about what we're teaching, folks. Do the best we can. Do as much as you want to do, but worry about the kids. Concentrate on every kid and what they're doing and what they're enduring during this time, and be concerned for each kid, special ed all the way to the advanced kids. And whatever we get done. And we should be assessing kids. The report we had at our last meeting from Steve with the benchmarks and how we assess at those periods. That's the kind of assessment we should be looking at. Individual buildings, individual kids assessments, and that kind of data, and using that to see growth. Don't worry about a state test and comparing to other districts. That's not important at this time. We've never been through this before, as all of you know, and this is something we have to take this is giving us a chance in the whole state to look about how we assess kids and if we're doing the right thing. And maybe we're going to change our way of assessing kids in the future based on this whole experience. And from what I hear from around the state, we got to be relaxed, take our time, have our goals. I love what you just put out regarding the expectations, and understand each kid's concerns. That's the most important thing. and listen to the parents. Tamika, your point about homework and all, so well, should be understood. And I think the district's tuning into that. But I just think I want to support with all of you that this is a statewide thing. Same talk is going around districts around the whole state. And I'm hearing the superintendents up in North Jersey, they're doing it, folks. They're backing off. They're slowing down. They're assessing kids in their districts and not worrying about the state. And the movement now is to try to do away with that. And I think you're going to hear, if you tune in tomorrow night to the county meeting, you're going to hear more of that discussion. Thanks, Pete, for the time. Appreciate it.
Yes, I just want to put a plug in that our very own Mrs. Samantha Elko, our Director of Guidance, is going to be presenting on state assessments. And
thank you, Dr. Gruccio, for making that recommendation. I'm glad the state bought into that because I think that she'll be doing a great job with it. So we have a lot to brag about tomorrow night, too. Right,
yeah, we'll speak today. So, yeah, you'll be in for great information, but right in line with what you're talking about.
That's great stuff. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lou. I agree 100%. And in addition to the county meeting tomorrow night, Mrs. Bird and I will be attending the New Jersey School Board's Legislative Committee Saturday morning. So we'll be able to report out on both of those meetings for next Tuesday. But your comments are right on, as well as Mrs. Gilbert Floyd. Mrs. Bird was next.
Thank you. I agree that worrying about state assessments and making sure that we're hitting those standards in a way that our students will excel on state assessments, you know, hopefully we can take that pressure off of our staff and our students and focus on just good teaching and doing the very best we can in circumstances that no one's been trained to work under. And I know I can speak as a parent here, you know, my children have struggled with virtual. And I feel like what Ms. Floyd was saying, that there's a lot of work being sent home, and that is not a criticism of teachers in any way. They are doing their best for sure. But I know for my own children, they've gotten so overwhelmed by the work that they've stopped doing any of the work. And I think that if that's happening in my house, it's probably happening in a lot of other households in Egg Harbor Township. So I'm hopeful that now that we have had to go all virtual again, that maybe we can take the pressure off our teachers a little bit and our students, and, you know, maybe cut down some stuff. I know that we've been, you know, from all the presentations, it said we're, you know, working on the holes, you know, based on our previous assessments. But, you know, it just doesn't feel, it just feels like they're still covering the same amount of content as they would if they were in school 5 days a week. And I get it. I'm trying to do the same thing as a teacher, but I think it's just everyone's spinning their wheels. So, so I just wanted to share that, because I figure if I'm experiencing that with my own children, probably other people are. So, so anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Excellent point. I mean, and it really ties back to when we're talking about health, safety, and welfare being of paramount importance in terms of the pandemic itself. It also ties into what we're doing academically, meeting these students, all of them where they are, and putting health, safety, and welfare first as well into the academics piece of it as well. Moving from our reports then, before we go to public comment, I am going to look for perhaps some consensus from board members as we're moving now into this period where we're back virtually, where we can line up our meetings with what the district is doing. So in other words, when the district is virtual, we'll meet virtual. When the district goes back to hybrid with in-person component, we'll come back to our hybrid in-person board meetings. Does that sound like something that makes sense that we can do? What do you think, gang? Hands?
Hands for straw poll. I see Mr. Price, Mr. Della Barca, Mrs. Byrd, Mr. Castellano.
Ms. Floyd, I just want to say that are we doing straw poll? I mean straw poll. Polls, straw
Yes.
poll, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get consensus on this one, because I think it gives us some predictability as to what we're doing, gives the public predictability. Let's line up with what the school is doing.
Okay.
When the buildings are open, we'll be in.
Okay, but I still think that I feel like we're not saying somewhat at the mercy of the virus of COVID in some ways. So I just want to say that I think we still have to put the risk, put the health and safety above, the risk of exposing someone's health and safety as board members and in the public in a setting. I just don't want to turn into a battle of we're going to be in person because X, Y, and Z. I think we still have to put the health, safety, and welfare of everyone at the forefront. When we
in agreement with that, Pete.
Yeah.
I think Tamika, I think you said, Pete, the hybrid idea back.
I'm in agreement.
Back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is that, yeah.
Yes.
Because
so,
I would prefer that because of my situation too. I'm not sure if we go in person, if I really want to be there in person at the time, depending on what's going on. But the hybrid thing gives me the opportunity to still participate.
So when the district goes back to hybrid instruction, meaning some portion of the week is in the buildings will be back open, we would return to an in-person meeting, but it would be the hybrid meeting where people can call in and participate from home, both board members and public. So that's what I'm looking to get some consensus on going forward. So what do you guys think? Is that clear? Does it make sense?
So if I can ask, the question is, while the school is all virtual, board meetings will be all virtual. When the school comes back in any kind of a hybrid model, the board would then go back to live offering a hybrid model. So a hands up means yes to that. That's the straw poll. Okay. So Mr. Castellano, Mrs. Gilbert Floyd, Mrs. Byrd, Mr. Price, Mr. Della Barca, Mrs. Salagi, and Mrs. Sullivan. I couldn't tell. That was a yes. That was a yes. Okay, Mrs. Sullivan. So everybody. Okay.
Awesome. There's consensus. Beautiful. Great teamwork. Thank you, guys. Now we're going to go ahead to public comment. I know this is a long evening. We got backed up because we missed the meeting. Just as Ms. Gilbert Floyd said, we're at the mercy of the virus. Unfortunately, it sort of got the best of us last week.
Mr. Castellano, before we go to public comment, if we can please take action. Yep.
Yes, we have so much on this agenda tonight that I almost skipped over our resolution.
Yay.
So I'm going to ask for a motion on 6.1, and that's our resolution to approve the submission of the preschool grant. So I'm looking for a motion on 6.1.
So made.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion on the preschool grant resolution? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Della Barca,
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Mr. Price, yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Salagi,
Yes.
Mrs. Byrd,
Yes.
and Mr. Castellano.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Anaya, for keeping me straight. So much on this agenda tonight. I almost skipped right over that. I knew we had to do it, but all right. So now we are at public comment, and we know how this is back to our phones. Just as a reminder, the board cannot answer questions regarding litigation or personnel. And also, if you have a question that's complex, it may be necessary for an administrator to get back to you with a detailed answer.
And just a reminder to not leave a voicemail for public comment, as it will not be received. Just continue to call until you reach a live moderator. And due to call volume, it may require several attempts. And this message is streamed 30 seconds after it actually happens. So just please be patient. Thank you. Okay, we have our first comment. Okay, you are now live streaming. Please give your name and address.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Butcher, 327 Sea Pine Drive. Thank you all so much for everything that you're doing. I know this is a really stressful time on everybody. I can definitely echo a lot of the sentiments, especially with what Ms. Bird was saying about sometimes the kids just don't want to do the work. So I think the board really ought to start looking at that schedule. So I'll ask that question first. My youngest son, who's 6 years old, is classified with autism and has dyslexia. I was collaborating with his special education teachers today at the end of the day online, and his gen ed teacher.
If you can mute your television, Ms. Butcher, it actually streams 30 seconds later. So it's going to mess you up a little bit.
Thank you all so much for everything that you're doing. I know this is a really stressful time on everybody. I can definitely echo a lot of the sentiments.
Did you hear me, Ms. Butcher?
Sometimes the kids just don't want to do the work. So I think the board really ought to start looking at that schedule. So I'll ask that question first. My youngest son, who's 6 years
Okay, we are squared away. Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So my question was, listening to the computer or myself, around the scheduling. I was told by the special ed teacher today and the gen ed teacher today that the schedule was created district-wide, particularly when you're looking at small group instruction and the placement of one-to-one instruction. When you think about the one-size-fits-all, which of course as a sped mom, I'm never a fan of, the little ones, your kids are the primary grade level students. A lot of times they are definitely fading by the afternoon. So a lot of times our little ones work best in the morning. I'm wondering how the teachers' voices were included in the creation of the virtual schedule. And if they weren't, if you could think about giving some more flexibility in terms of that one-to-one instruction that the kids will receive. Because if we have to save it for 2 o'clock or 2:30 and they started at 9:15 in the morning, you're not going to get much out of a lot of these kids at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butcher. So I'm going to, I think there may be some components that would require a one-to-one answer for you, but I think other aspects I'm going to have Dr. Gruccio address.
Well, as you all recall, the road back to school schedule was collaboratively developed. We also took a step back and listened to the public. I guess it was September, October, and board member suggestions as well to do the synchronous schedule. So we made that adjustment based on the suggestion. But just remember, we have to provide equality, and that's where some districts are getting in jams where we have to have that live teacher that were provided for the 4 hours. So that locks us into a morning schedule based on our schedule. But again, for individual needs, we are open to suggestions, and we'll talk about any adjustments that have to be made. And Mr. Dorso, as I stated in the beginning, in my opening remarks, is here to provide relevant and effective education to students that need it based on the IEP needs as well. So we will definitely be looking into that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. And just, before I go to Mrs. Bird, just as a reminder, this road back document is a living, breathing document, and it continues to evolve as it's needed. Okay, Mrs. Bird has something for
Sorry.
public comment?
Yeah, I apologize, but I just want to, I'm a kindergarten teacher, and my schedule is I start with my students at 8:20 and we end at 12:20, and then I have office hours in the afternoon from 8:20 to 12:20. I am live teaching with breaks, intermittent breaks. However, I do break during that time with my students, and they do an hour of independent work and when they're doing their independent work, I then meet with kids in small group. So I bounce in that hour from kids based on their needs. So I am live instructing them during the morning, which I think is very age appropriate. I am working with them one-on-one and in small groups. So they're getting everything they would get in a typical day that they would get in the classroom, minus playtime and recess and lunch and things like that. So I think I've been given latitude in that to make professional decisions with my students based on their needs during that time. So I think that it might, if we're expecting early elementary students to work in small groups at the end of the day, I don't know if that is, we might need to relook at that and trust our teachers a little bit more to make decisions during that live instruction. Because just like we would in a classroom, we work in small groups during our instructional time.
Thank you. Very good.
We do have another caller.
Okay.
All right, you are live streaming. Please restate your name and address.
Hi, this is Terry Alabarda, 206 Westwood Road, Egg Harbor Township.
Go ahead with
I
your
just want
public
to say
comment.
thank you so much. I am truly humbled, and I'm so excited to begin helping as soon as I can. And I promise to work hard and do the best I can for our students. And I'm a parent of a 9th grader and 2 7th graders, one has an IEP and 2 with 504 plan. So I want to say that the teachers have done such a fantastic job. I know they are truly working hard, and that it's not the ideal learning situation for our children, and it's not the ideal teaching situation for the teachers. But everyone is doing the best they can, and I'm actually very relieved to hear that the change is coming down the road, because it has been very stressful. But the teachers that my children have, they have been great with communication. Every time I email, we collaborate on ideas to make things better and help my kids to do better in school. And I totally agree with Mr. Della Barca about social emotional well-being of our children need to be at the forefront right now. I'm a huge proponent of social emotional learning techniques, mindfulness, and resiliency. So I agree that we need to keep that in the forefront of what's going on, because this will pass at some point, but we need to make sure our children get through it unscathed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alabarda, for your comment. And of course, congratulations to you. And we look forward to welcoming you back to the board and to continue helping us out so well as you did in the past. So congratulations to you.
And we do have another caller. Okay, you are live streaming. Go ahead with your name and address, please.
My name is Brandon Donasso. My address is 20 Cloverville Circle, Lake Harbor Township, New Jersey.
Go ahead with your public comment.
Yes, I have actually a couple questions, a couple comments. The first one, I actually did try to call Ms. Gruccio last week and left a message, but I didn't hear back from her, so I figured I would call in. My question primarily is, the decision that was made to shut down, was that something that was mandated by a level above the superintendent and the board, or was that just a discretionary decision by the superintendent and the board?
Go ahead with your next comment.
Okay, well, that's a question, so I'd like somebody to answer that if they could, please. Was it a discretionary decision, or was it something that was mandated by someone above you guys?
Mr. Castellano, would you like me to answer that? Or you can?
Yeah, I think we did lay that out at the beginning of the meeting, but you know, these are times.
No, you actually didn't lay it out. You blamed it on the county. So I'm trying to find out, was it the county that was involved with the decision and made the decision, or was it at the level of the board and the superintendent here in the township? Or did it come from the state?
Yeah, no, we did actually lay it out, but if what I was going to say is, you know, we'll repeat, because that's fine. These are difficult times. Okay. So I'll ask Dr. Gruccio to just run through it again.
Yes, as I stated earlier, it was based on the 75 cases or so that we have in the district, the lack of staff, the lack of substitutes, that we could not provide effective and consistent education. We were shutting down classrooms. We have now moved to orange, which is a state level, activity level of COVID, which suggests that schools close if they cannot keep kids in pods or contain the virus and or have staffing to provide the education for the students. We are not in that place. We cannot meet the criteria at this time. So I made the decision to close schools at this time. And I'm confident in that decision for the health, safety, and welfare of our students and our staff. It's to the point where it could not be controlled so that we could provide health, safety, and welfare.
And
so isn't that a failure on behalf of the people in charge that we couldn't provide it, because you have districts in the county that are still open? Take, for example, Galloway or other districts like that. So why is our district not able to provide? We're taxpayers in the county, aren't we?
Well, sir, we have about 140 staff members out due to quarantine and more on the list that are affected by the virus. And it hit us hard. We have a daily dashboard that you can follow, and you can see just how many cases that we have. We received 3 more today, 5 over the weekend. So that's how we're handling it. We are a large school.
And how many people are in the district, students and teachers and staff? About 8,000?
No, we're about 7,200 students now. And
yeah,
about
7,200, so 1% of total population of the schools, students, staff, and teachers were quarantined or sick, but we shut down the whole school system. And you know, it really bothers me. You guys keep talking about the welfare of children. These kids are suffering. I know kids are suffering. My kids are struggling. They're good students. We got to start worrying about the welfare of the kids and not worrying about the adults all the time. And I think that's what's getting lost here. Someone quoted Dr. Fauci. We should start listening to people who are telling us kids aren't spreading this. They're not getting real sick from it. But what they are getting sick from is staying at home and sitting in front of a computer screen all day. So I just hope you guys start thinking more about the children, because I keep hearing it's about safety and safety and safety. And I thought masks work. So can't people just wear N95 masks all day? Wouldn't that make them safe?
Thank you.
Okay, so we understand your concern. This is complicated stuff, so we'll do our best to explain it.
Okay, we have another caller. All right, you are now live streaming. Please restate your name and address.
My name is Priscilla Rodriguez, 220 Shires Way.
Go ahead with your public comment.
So I guess my comment and my question is the parent before me made a great point. But I guess the highest frustration that we have as parents is the lack of communication. So, for example, in order for us to know that there was a lack of, and that was the reason for the virtual school shutdown, I had to go to this virtual meeting. It was not communicated in the memo or the letter that went out. And the letter and the memo that went out on the 24th, I believe, and they were going to go to virtual instruction on the 30th, giving us working parents time to prepare. I mean, I have a special needs son, multiple disabilities. When he went back the first time, he regressed tremendously, but that's a separate issue. But, having to deal with that, and then there was no comments about Chromebooks, and then there was nothing. It was like, okay, you guys are going virtual on the 30th, and that's it. There was no communication. So I've heard from, I guess, member Bird and another member on there that, there are parents as well, and they feel the frustration. But I think that as a board, you need to do a little bit better on communicating with the parents, but communicating with ample time. Because if we know, then we can be allies. It's not us against you or you against us. It's us working together for the betterment of our children. So would I get a commitment from the board and from Dr. Gruccio to be better at communicating all of this to the parents?
Thank you.
Well, we thank you for your question. And, I can just tell you that we're doing the very best we can. Our administrators, our staff are working around the clock to deal with this pandemic. And us as board members, I've been on the board for 20 years. We've never been this busy and this challenged trying to deal with this pandemic the best we can. This constant struggle and stress between, we know that we need to keep people safe, yet we want to do the best educationally. And that's a constant struggle. But we're really doing the very best that we can with it. And we can always do better at our communication, but we work very hard at that as well. We did have a short turnaround time to make this pivot, but we had to let the data and the numbers dictate that. So we can always do better, and we appreciate the comment.
There are no calls on hold at this time. If you want to put the screen up, we'll give it a minute.
And I'll just add in that, we did our best. We sent calls out. There were emails. There were social media. We have a Facebook presence. We have a Twitter presence. I know as a parent, I got text reminders. I got emails. I got phone calls. I saw the social media. But again, we can always do better.
I think we're in good shape, Mr. Castellano.
Okay, so we're going to close public comment for tonight. This is a long meeting, again, because we got backed up. So We now have to, we would normally have board member comment, but I want to keep, unless anyone has anything really pressing, it's 9 p.m. and we have yet another topic to deal with. We have to go back into executive to have a conversation. And I would like to have a motion to adjourn back to executive, and we will take a 5-minute rest, stretch break.
Excuse me, Mr.
Floyd, yes.
So we're taking a break, going to executive, take a 5-minute break, then we have to come back to public?
No, we're going to go to executive, but it'll start, and I want to give everybody 5 minutes to stretch their legs.
Mr. Castellano, I know it's a long meeting, but I do have something I'd like to say. And I'll try to make it super quick.
Sure.
It's just that, I just wanted to say, that, in reference to, I just wanted to take a second to thank, the community for those that came out and voted in the election. And just going to share something real quick. I was not going to run again for the Board of Education. For different reasons. Some of the reasons were, I felt that some of my colleagues that I worked with on the board, I felt like they weren't being collaborative. I felt like that it became more about politics and power versus students and stakeholders. I felt it was going in that direction. But I turned my paperwork in, and I turned it in on the last day because I was going back and forth. And what happened to me was, my final tipping point for me was, I messed around and fooled around and happened to watch the funeral of John Lewis. And when I watched his funeral, and I thought about the fact that this man had his head bashed in, he's been arrested several times just to fight for equality, and made it possible for me to have the right to vote, to be able to run for an election and to be able to sit on the board, not for any power of my own, but to make sure that, and I said this in my first term, and I always say, for all, ALL, for all students and stakeholders to have a voice. So that is, I said to myself, I can attend some board meetings. I can be at the table when decisions are being made. And I felt like that was more important than what I was experiencing or was feeling. I felt like there was still more work to do. So I will say this, that I am glad that I did run again. And I just want to thank anyone who had the audacity or the boldness to vote for me and to help me get reelected to serve on the Board of Education again. And I want to thank those who, even the people who did not vote for me or did not support me and felt like I wasn't the person for the job, I want to thank them as well, because any board member knows that if you're going to be a board member, you're a board member for all stakeholders and all students, regardless if they supported you or not. That's null and void. I will continue to be the voice for all stakeholders and all students. And I just wanted to say thank you for the support, and thank you for the opportunity to serve again on the Board of Education. And, and I say this not in a negative way, but, just buckle up, because, just like John Lewis said, I plan on being good trouble in a positive way. So I just want to thank everyone for their support, and looking forward to working with Patrick Ireland, and working with Mr. Price and Ms. Alabarda, and of course, all the other board members that are here. I mentioned them because Terry just got appointed tonight. Mike Price was reelected, and Patrick Ireland is a new member on the board, and who slammed it. He slam dunked it. So he should be proud of himself as well. So that's all. I just wanted to say that real quick, just to thank everyone. And my family for putting up with all the longest board election in history. It felt like it was 8,343 million days. But it's over now.
Thank you, Mrs. Gilbert Floyd.
Thank you.
I am gonna acknowledge our successful candidates next week at the work meeting, but
Mm-hmm. No, I know you were. I just had to say that. That's all.
Mr. Price, are you good? Do you have anything? Mike is good. Okay. All right. So, so thank you for that. And a motion to adjourn. We're going to take a 5-minute stretch break, and then we'll be in executive.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. Or Ms. Bird.
Okay.
We do have to say that we're coming back into public and may take action because we have to dismiss from public again.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll be back in public. We may take action, and that's on the agenda.
Okay.
We have everyone here. So we're back in public session. For those members of the public that are still with us, we've been discussing, and we're now going to take action on a personnel matter that is very important to us continuing to maintain our facilities and our buildings and our grounds in a safe and responsible way. And so I'll ask for Ms. Anaya to read the resolution, and I'll ask for a motion in a second.
Okay. Motion to rescind the resignation of Timothy Brunetta and appoint Mr. Brunetta as construction manager from December 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 with a stipend of $22,000 prorated.
Thank you. May I have a motion on that?
Motion. Mrs. Sullivan.
Second, Mr. Delabarka.
Okay, we have Mrs. Sullivan, Mrs. Salagi. Mr. Delbarca and Mrs. Salagi were simultaneous, so
I grabbed Mrs. Delbarca. I did audio. Yeah.
pick whoever got it by a nose. Is there any discussion? I want to just thank the board for a lot of hard work this evening before we go ahead. So let's go ahead and roll call on that one.
Mr. Delabarca?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert-Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price, yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Salagi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bird?
Yes.
And Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, gang, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very long meeting, very difficult, a lot of hard work. There's a lot of hard work ahead. I say it every time. We're right in the middle of this pandemic, and we're in this surge. We've just got to keep working together. We've got a lot of hard work ahead. And so I think with this late hour, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. I have Mrs. Bird and Mrs. Gilbert-Floyd.
Second, yes.
Hands by acclamation, and we are adjourned. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us.